Our next guest speaker is KristaLyn Vetovich. KristaLyn is an internationally best-selling author of more than 10 books, a holistic coach, teacher, astrologer, expert in divine timing, and thought leader in the revolutionary industry of high vibe entertainment. Growing up as a lover of fiction novels, KristaLyn began to notice that books were commonly low vibe and felt that the stories she was coming across were leading readers into the dark, but not showing them the way back out. In a flash of genius, she felt inspired to write stories that were programmed to be healing, in turn, raising the vibration of the reader in a safe and conscious way through entertainment. She authored the book, Writing the High Vibe Hero's Journey, among many others, focusing on motivational themes of being your own hero and serving the world through your unique talents and gifts, which she knows everyone was born with. KristaLyn lives in a treehouse in Pennsylvania with her husband and corgi Jack, and cooperates with her family to help revitalize the core region of Pennsylvania to a new, sustainable glory. Today, KristaLyn will share with us how to write a fiction story that heals and changes readers' lives. Today's world is consumed by anxiety, and KristaLyn believes that healers of every modality are the heroes we need. Her talk today will teach us how to become one of those heroes, how to bring the feeling of being a hero from storytelling into our present realities, and how to even become the mentor in someone else's story. Please welcome KristaLyn Vetovich. We're so excited to have you with us here today, and just can't wait to hear everything you have to share with us about becoming the hero of our own stories. So take it away, KristaLyn.
Thank you. So just making sure, I think my sound is all set, and I am so excited to be here. What an intro, and I appreciate that so much. So the good news is I do have a slide that I'm going to show everybody. I have a great PowerPoint presentation. We're going to walk through it the same way a hero goes through the hero's journey in a book, because life as within, so without, as above, so below, the structures that we follow in stories, you can actually find in your real life. And that's one of the key focuses of this high vibe hero's journey, that not only are you experiencing, but you get to help someone else experience and guide them through their healing journey to their higher self and to yours. So I am going to quickly share my screen and then navigate over to, let's see here, navigate over to my thing. Once I do my entire screen, it's not letting me do that. So I'm going to try something and we will see how it goes. All right, here we go. Oh. Forgive my technical difficulties. There we go. Present. Awesome. Here we go. So not every hero has the perfect smooth start, and neither did this presentation, but we are ready to go if I can make this thing go away. All right, so it looks like we're just going to go this way. That's totally fine. So you can already see a sneak peek. Today, I want to talk to you guys about high vibe storytelling. I'm going to explain what that is, and we're going to learn by the end of this exactly how you can craft a story that truly changes the world. It's totally possible. You can do it, and it can start right now. So where we're going to start is, I have a question for you, and that is, if you had a superpower, what would that superpower be? So I want you to think about that and just come up with the first thing that comes to mind. It's going to be revealing a lot about you. And also later on, we'll talk about how it reveals the person that you can help as well. So the next thing is, you definitely have one. Some people think that they don't have superpowers, they don't have talents. That's not true. Everyone is beautiful and unique and individual. So the perfect thing here is, you have a superpower, and if you have more than one, I know you at least have the ability to tell a story. And you can tell a story in various ways. We'll talk about fiction and nonfiction. Any way that you want to tell a story in any medium counts. So every story that you have to tell counts as part of your superpower. So today we're going to talk about how to craft that high vibration story that heals and changes people's lives from anywhere in the world. We're going to talk about how to find the people that need to hear your story exactly where they are so that you can make a difference that you were born to make and help really escalate this world to that 5D reality that we are approaching. And we are going to be able to get started right away. You can either use the comments. I know we're doing a live stream with some comments, or you can grab a journal and you'll be able to put this stuff together as we go throughout this presentation. So a lot of people, like I said, they tend to feel like they're not good enough, or the time's not right, or someone's going to do it first. And I want to give you proof right off the bat so that you can really take in and integrate the rest of the information that we're going to cover. I want to give you proof about why it's the perfect time and you're the perfect person to share this story. Many of us have understood by now that 2020 is no ordinary year. So I found evidence of this, as did many astrologers, and I know we'll be hearing from some really great astrologers throughout this expo, and they'll probably cover this as well, but the stars aligned this year. The stars aligned for things to change, for the world to escalate, to elevate, to rise in vibration. And there are many details, as you can see on this chart, that show that, but also you have a chart. You have a chart of the sky of the moment that you were born, and that chart shows evidence that your story is intentional and that you are the person meant to live it, that you are experiencing that, and that you have a message to share. So if you're ever wondering if you're good enough or important enough, then you always have something to fall back on. If your own experience isn't enough, you can fall back on actual data that shows, much like this year, that the stars have aligned not only for you to be here, but they've aligned for us to raise our vibration right now, starting this year. So as with many writers, I want to start by teaching a word and expanding our vocabulary. I love words, especially interesting ones. This one, I'm not entirely sure that I pronounce it correctly, but I do my best with Weltschmerz. And what this word actually means is world pain. Now, we just heard about how saving the world actually starts kind of individually. And so this feeling of Weltschmerz is the depression that you feel when the world as it is doesn't reflect what you think the world should be. You get to decide that on your individual microcosm, kind of like how we heard in the keynote speech, in your own within world. You get to decide what that looks like. And from there, you can create that world. Imagination lays the tracks for reality, as we heard from Jordan earlier. You can create that world. So if you can relate to this feeling, now you have a word to apply to it, but also we're going to create the solution to this feeling. And we're going to start right now. You may have heard of the hero's journey. It is something that we find in many stories, in many movies, especially Marvel movies, anything with a superhero or a very clear hero in it. The main character, the hero of a story, which can be in many different forms, they go through a series of events. It's a cycle, right? So as the hero is going through this cycle, we call it a journey because it begins and it goes through a growth and then it comes to completion so that it can begin anew. The journey, fortunately, never ends. Sometimes in the fiction world, we call that a series. But in real life, the chapters, the books, the stories go on and on and on. So you notice in the hero's journey, I have a little graphic here. Hopefully it's easy enough to read. But life begins in the ordinary world, which is right here and right now, depending on where you are in your journey. You find your call to adventure, the thing that draws you out and makes you think about exploring. And then you have someone who comes in to assist you. This is the mentor character that we're going to be talking about a little bit later. My favorite character in a book, to be honest with you. And then you depart. You go through trials. You have battles. You go through crises. We all go through hard points in our lives that teach us so much. And through the next pieces of the story, you do come to find redemption, rewards, results, and they all result in a new life, an escalation from where you were to where you were meant to be. So relatively from 3D, possibly to 5D. And in other terms, from a sort of trauma to the emotional healing and even the physical results of that healing from that trauma. And that's what I really like to cover in these stories is the little things, as we've learned, create the person. So it's who we are on the inside that really comes out and emanates from us and helps us navigate our world and helps us make differences to the world that we see, sort of resolving that Weltschmerz like we were talking about. So I want to start by giving you a little bit of background on my journey. I am an internationally best-selling high vibe author and astrologer. You can tell I've got a passion for that. I'm a holistic healer. I've got intuitive skills. I'm a speaker, a Comic-Con panelist, and I am determined to raise the vibration of the world and prove that magic is something we use every day. And I'll tell you what, it's easier than I expected it to be, because knowing this, knowing that we as individuals are truly making magic every day with everything we decide, is something that is super fun for me to share, which is why you can see the, the energy that I carry into this conversation with you, because I'm just so honored to be in your presence, to be able to help you see your own amazing potential. And that is how we raise the vibration, one person, one important, beautiful soul at a time. So here are some of my books that I've written with the intention of programming the words with healing, like we're going to be talking about. This is what we call high vibe entertainment. I know our wonderful host Zane actually has his own comic book, which is going for the same idea, where through the story, the reader heals, the reader raises their own vibration. And so that doesn't come in a straight line, right? For my own story, it started actually with my journey started with brain surgery. So sometimes you get a really stark beginning, and sometimes it's a little bit more subtle. But throughout the process, you have your development of skills, you have relationships that go well or teach you something. You have your own research, which is another thing that is super important that I can't wait to talk to you about later in this presentation. You have failures. You have new attempts, like we were just talking about, we just heard in the previous speech, letting something die to make space for something new. And then you find that new place, and it leads you to amazing things like being at red carpets or working with Marianne Williamson. We each get our own amazing journey that leads us to exactly who we're supposed to be. So mine came with a lot of pieces of paper. This is a big list of just some of the things that I have learned along the way. And you have just as an extensive list as anyone else does. All of these, I call them pieces of paper because that's really what they are. They're a piece of paper that come together to show a story, which is exactly what a book is, or exactly what a screenplay is, or a comic. So all of us have things like this, where we can put together the individual instances to create a story that has a beginning, a middle, and a resolution that I like to think leads to the new beginning, that new world. So what I want to think about first, as we're really diving in, is naming a nonfiction book or any book that changed your life. This is a few examples. Sherry Salata's The Beautiful No is amazing. Big Magic, which is hugely influential for people who are writing high vibe entertainment. You can see how Course in Miracles, they really help you to heal. Have you read a book that changed your way of thinking about the world, that changed the way you viewed the world, that gave you permission that you didn't have before to think in a new way that allows you to move forward? So think about a book that has changed your life. And again, if you want to be journaling this, go for it, because now we enter Act 1, which is the beginning. Books many times come in a 3-act structure. And so the Act 1 is the origin story, kind of like what we just talked about. It begins with life in the ordinary world. And so any other year, normally I would be talking to writers saying, hey, think about how fiction stories or any kind of storytelling could be healing. Now I'm coming to healers and saying, hey, here's another modality that might suit you. What if we took storytelling and made it a healing modality? That's what I get to do this year. So that for me is one of the beautiful parts of 2020 that I am so appreciative about. Yes, it's been a hard year. Yes, we're going through a lot of transformation, but such beauty is already rising from these ashes. The deaths that we've experienced so far, metaphorically and in other terms, have made space for beauty to rise and come into this 5D experience that we're all looking forward to. And that is something to be grateful for. So I have a really great quote here that is, beneath every behavior, there's a feeling. We've been hearing a lot about feelings today as well, and I'm going to expand on that even further. Beneath each feeling is a need. And when we meet that need, rather than focus on the behavior, we begin to deal with the cause and not the symptom. A lot of you watching today may actually be familiar with this concept, and it is one of the really effective ways of healing in our lives, beginning from the inside and moving out. So these feelings, these behaviors, these thoughts, like we've heard so much about, how great that so many people seem to have found that wavelength. They really, truly do help. And this is going to put it into context for how you can write it into a story that helps people in their comfort zones. I'll be expanding on that later as well. So let's talk about our hero's journey, especially as it pertains to what we've really encountered this year. We want to heal the world. And this year, one of the main themes, I think, of 2020 has been the relationship discovery between me, myself, and what I call I am. So we've heard the me, myself, and I trope before, but the me is your own unconscious. It's your unconscious beliefs. It's who you are. And it's that person that you are down at your core. The myself is our collective conscious. It's the part of you that is incorporated with everyone else, the collective that we know exists and connects and needs to sort of understand each other a little bit more so that we can really escalate into this new normal, this new world that we're creating together. And then comes the I am. The I am is your connection to God or your connection to your source. And I have found that meditation actually helps us connect. I'm sure many of you have experienced this as well, where through meditation, you get to connect to your source. You get to connect to God and have that clearer download of information, that clearer understanding and certainty that comes from this. And I call this the theta connection because that's the brainwave we utilize often in meditation. It's also the brainwave we use for dreaming. So we've heard a lot about the dream world today as well. This dreaming is very 4D. And that's where we can access a lot of this information that also can help us translate messages into story, which is one of the concepts that we do in the high vibe hero's journey. So every hero will have something that they are working alongside or working against or working to overcome or change. And for us, the adversary is, in my opinion, a lot of the content that is available in the world today. As you heard in my intro, I noticed a while ago that I didn't enjoy reading anymore, and I couldn't understand why that was until I realized that I couldn't finish a book because it just made me feel so sad. And when I would get to the last page, there was no other direction to go. It stayed in the sad. And I think that there's a place for acknowledging the sad, for feeling the feeling and letting it process, letting it integrate. But I believe that stories should take you into the darkness and reveal the light. So they shouldn't leave you in the darkness. There should be a way out. It may not be a happy ending where they all lived happily ever after with rainbows, but it may be an ending where progress is possible, where moving forward is a new understanding, a new sense of growth. And so I believe that content teaches us things, because another fun fact about that theta brainwave is that when you are watching television or reading a book or doing something where you kind of zone out a little bit, you've entered the theta brainwave. This is also where we integrate and decide our subconscious beliefs that then help us decide what actions to take in similar situations. So the content that you are consuming in your times of entertainment are actually educating and informing your subconscious beliefs. So if we're flooded with subconscious entertainment that supports feelings of anxiety without revealing ways to cope or ways to overcome, then we're just staying in anxiety. And that is probably why fear is one of the easiest ways to go viral, or anger is one of the easiest ways to go viral. Let's move joy and laughing and humor up a notch, and let's flood that collective conscious, which I believe you can actually track using social media. We'll talk about that as well. But let's flood that with something a little bit higher vibe to really help the masses on a larger scale raise their vibration as well. If we can distribute that feeling and teach it where it's needed, the person that picks up your book, the person that picks up your movie or your script will get that feeling too. And I know this because I know we already experienced this. Funny enough, this is not a new concept, just as we have several people even involved in this expo who have picked up on this individually. It's kind of already seated in the collective conscious. So what we need is a miracle. And many of you may have heard this quote by Marianne Williamson: a miracle is a shift in perception from fear to love. So how are we going to do that? How can you help people decide just to not be afraid anymore? You know, like rub some dirt in it is a phrase that I heard when I was a kid. And as I grew, at first it was like, oh no, maybe I should just, you know, acknowledge this pain. But also at the same time, the more I grow stronger around the things that cause the pain, as we heard that explanation in the previous speech, the more I came to understand that shift in perception, the shift in perception happens because of the experiences we have. And it happens because someone shows me something different than what I thought I understood or the way I interpreted something before. So how do you help someone shift their perception? I love this quote by F. Scott Fitzgerald. That's the beauty of all literature. You discover that your longings are universal longings, and that you're not lonely and isolated from anyone. You belong. So the first step is realizing that you are not the only one who has this perception, and you are not the only one perceiving, which means someone else out there is perceiving something and may have a different interpretation of it. This is where that theta brainwave comes in, because someone out there is perceiving something in a way that you can bring the miracle into and shift the perception of. That is where entertainment accesses that theta brainwave. And we do this through conscious, high vibe content. So that's giving them books that teach feelings that can help them cope with whatever it is they're going through. And you're the expert in that. You already know what that is because you've been through it yourself. That's what makes you the mentor, sneak peek of their story. So you can give them books that make them think. The more we encourage someone to think in a safe space where they don't feel like they have to be defensive or they have to protect a feeling or a belief that they already have, the more that they'll allow themselves to explore. You empower them through that method to heal themselves. And that's beautiful. That is the goal. So let's flood the myself collective with high vibes. And in order to do that, let's go into a little bit, you may see down in the corner here, a little preview. Let's talk about what vibes are and how you can identify them. So starting with low vibes, we'll go with those first. Low vibes are anxiety, fear, depression, illness, things that make you feel bummed, like a sad face. We talked about the power of a smile earlier, but a sad face can sometimes make you feel that way too. Now you can identify low vibes. That's the point of this slide. Now I want to help you identify really easily high vibes. High vibes are joy, love, comfort, safety, health, things that make you smile, puppy dogs, fluffy things, coffee, raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens. You know high vibes now as well. If you didn't before, think about the things that make you smile. That's high vibe. And to take it even further, we can talk about how you can identify high vibe content that already exists and some high vibe content that you actually may love and value already. So I'm going to show you a slide, and I bet without even looking at the list on the side of the screen that you can identify just about every one of these franchises. These are franchises that have generated fandoms. Fandoms come because people feel like they belong and they feel so seen by that story that they just want to immerse in it even further. They want to build their own stories around it. They want to expand on it and create a world, integrating that story and the concepts of it into their own imagined reality, which does inform their actual reality. So if you know Disney and Pixar, the feeling you get when you hear that da 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 da, we all have this thing that just launches us into this warm and fuzzy feeling where in that moment, nothing can be wrong. Nothing feels horrible, even if you're having a bad time. And I love that, again, 2020 has educated us on this. The things that we've been deciding to escape into have really been informing the kind of healing, the kind of feelings that we would like to be learning, that we want to have more of in our lives. And this goes everywhere, but you can find it really clearly in stories as well. And I have to include video games as well, because stories in some video games, especially Legend of Zelda, if I have any Zelda fans out there, I see you. Yes. So Disney, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Did you even need me to spell that one out? That one's been really popular lately with incredible themes that definitely are high vibe and even 5D. So next journal question, what is your favorite fandom? It could be one that was on that list, or it could be an entirely different one. There are countless ones to choose from. And if you've ever gone to a Comic-Con and dressed up as a character, it is highly likely that that is one of your fandoms. So you can actually tune in with yourself and think, what does that fandom say about the feelings that I want to be learning? So moving on to Act 2. A fun thing about Act 2, I call it the underrated middle. When you're looking into writing a book, when people explore the structure of story, they always say, oh, the midpoint, it's the low point of the book. I beg to differ. The midpoint is the turning point. So when you come into how do you write a book? I know I want to. I have the experience that's led me up to this. How do I write my story? How do I get it out there? How do I express it in tangible form to be able to share with other people? That's not a midpoint, even though there's a process and steps to take before you can release it to the world. This is the turning point. This is where you not only are focused on healing and helping other people, but you get that inward work as well. So many people will say, write what you know. And that's absolutely true. And there's one of the things that you know that will expand on your repertoire of things to write about exponentially. And that is my advice, to write what you wish. The desire to write was planted within you for a reason. If you feel like you don't know enough, you don't have experience, you're not an expert in something, write what you wish, because you're an expert in that. You know what you wish the world would look like. You know what you wish would have happened in a certain situation. And in writing what you wish, you're going to reveal that you truly are an expert in your area. And that, again, just like astrology, you were born to be able to do this, to be able to share this. So in nonfiction, there are benefits to be able to write what you wish there. You can directly address a subject or a process, and it's laid out point by point, chapter by chapter, for someone to be able to just understand and know at face value. I love nonfiction for this. It's got your steps. It's proven to be effective. When people just want to know because they're ready to change and change now, there is nothing more effective than being able to have a guide that says, here it is, step by step, there you go, you got it. So if that's your style of sharing a story, it's equally as important as fiction storytelling. But when we move on to high vibe fiction, there are intricacies and nuances that go along with this too, to show that it actually has similar benefits to a nonfiction book. So you already know that this person, when they're reading the book, because they're imagining what they're seeing in the book, they're using your descriptions to create that world in their own mind. They're already in their subconscious. They're already using that theta brainwave. And the great part is this can appeal to all ages. This can apply to all ages. Me in junior high and younger, I was not likely to pick up a nonfiction book. I wasn't ready to be able to just know and understand something right away. But a lot of the things I learned as a child, a lot of my unconscious beliefs, my things that I learned between the ages of 1 and 7, when we're really creating our core belief systems, they came from the stories that I was told, the stories that I read, children's books. It's one of the reasons why children's books are such a huge demographic and in such high demand in the publishing industry and in the entertainment industry in general. You're molding people. You're educating them in this pure and an incredible way. So think about the shows you watched as a kid and how they informed the way that you then navigated the world after that, or the books that you read as a kid, the movies that you loved, the places you loved to go, the imaginary games you loved to play, what characters showed up in those imaginary games over and over and over. Fiction is also entertaining, which means that it feels safe. We relax into it because we don't think that we're being tested. We don't think that we have to integrate this. It's so important. We're allowing ourselves to just explore. And the incredible part about that even further is that it creates a safe space to detach from biases. In this world today, we have a lot of unconscious biases that many of us aren't even aware of. But when we put it into a context where we can detach from polarizing this or that or political concepts, you can create a space where someone can analyze how they feel about anything in a safe way. They will suddenly be all for everybody having a fair go at anything. They will suddenly understand the nuance of seeing an individual rather than a group and loving them on that individual level. You can do that through things like, elves and fairies and all of those things that you can use as metaphor for other things. We see it happening in fantasy all the time. I think that's one of the reasons why fantasy is so sought after, because it creates a world where everyone gets to feel unique, but also where they acknowledge that they are all part of that one whole world. It's such a beautiful thing. And that's one of the benefits that fiction and storytelling really brings in. It is expansive. There are no laws there unless you create them. And then you can educate people on laws that already do exist, but need to be explained in a different way. It's a great way to make someone just go, huh, and they take it from there. You're enabling them to heal themselves. So here's another quote from someone I really love. I'm a big Disney fan. I actually worked at Disney for a while. So when we talk about storytelling and we understand from some pretty acclaimed masters of storytelling, at least in my opinion, Pete Docter of Pixar, who is a director at Pixar, said, what you're trying to do when you tell a story is to write about an event in your life that made you feel some particular way. And what you're trying to do when you tell a story is to get the audience to have that same feeling. Can you think of a Pixar movie that made you feel the feels? I know I can. I know which characters immediately come to mind and how they made me feel. That is an example, even though the feelings aren't always good, even though sometimes I cried like a baby, that's high vibe. It's letting me understand feelings and it's teaching me about them. And it's helping me explore feelings I may not have been able to feel on my own in my own realm of experience. But now my experience is expanded by imagination and by someone else sharing that story with me in a way where I can feel safe. And I love that. So what feeling represents your message in the world? Whether your storytelling is through speaking, public speaking, nonfiction, fiction, comic books, movies, what feeling represents your message? And then we get into what is called the call to adventure. This is the part where you get to craft the story. Will you do this? And what does that mean for your own growth and development? That's the adventure. Adventure isn't, boom, I saved the world. Adventure is the process of growing individually and making an impact, realizing the impact that you can make on the people around you and how you can also serve that myself that we talked about in previous slides. So if you're confused or looking for ideas on how to craft your story, here are some of my best tips. Here are some of the tips that have helped me and guided me as I've written all of my books in the past and moving forward. Meditation and intentions. Just like with so many other things, when you meditate, you open your own mind to creativity and you can set an intention. In fact, in my latest book, writing the High Vibe Hero's Journey, we call that high vibe outlining. It's setting an intention for every chapter. So you know what you're teaching, what you're feeling, what the characters are experiencing. Those are intentions. It's making a statement that this is what I want to achieve. Writing and reading sprints. If you're nervous about getting the words down and things like that, if you're telling your story, but the grueling middle part is really daunting to you, set a half-hour timer, write for as long as you're going to write, take a break. And I do this all the time, and it has produced over 10 books. It works. It is totally allowed. No one says you have to write 5 books a year. You can do it at your pace. And as we saw on the astrology slide, the timing will always be perfect for your story to get out there. So plotting and pantsing. I don't know if you've heard, but there is a dichotomy between plotting versus pantsing, writing by the seat of your pants and just letting the story unfold. There is something to be said about both of them. Plotting allows for intention setting, but pantsing allows for you to just flow and just download the story. This is why in my high vibe outlines that I use for my writing, I set an intention and then unleash. If it ends up being completely different than the intention, as long as it still adds to the story and serves the reader the way that I want to serve them, I let it go because that was probably from God and I'm going to respect that. You have that connection too. And writing is a great way, storytelling in general is a great way to access that connection. So you can have a writer's journal, which you've already started if you've been taking notes and using the prompts throughout this presentation. But you can also just understand that everything is writing. If something inspired you today, that could be a part of a story that you tell later. In fact, in conversation, it most likely will be. That is writing. It's crafting the story. So you don't have to put pressure on yourself to say that I didn't write today. If you wrote today and you did 5,000 words, whoa, good job. If you wrote today and you did a paragraph, fantastic. If you didn't write any words down today, but you experienced the world, that is still a huge part of crafting a story. So do not ever let yourself feel less than because of comparison with someone else's pace. And again, focus on the feelings. That's the important part, not how quickly you write, not how quickly it gets down on the page, because that does not happen in the Theta Brainwave, my friend. The Theta Brainwave is creative. So it's focusing on the feelings. And so your story's theme is the feeling that you are teaching. And then the plots, you can break it down for what feeling are they learning in this part of the journey? What feeling are they learning in this scene? What feeling are they experiencing? Because healing is not a one feeling show all the time. There's a theme feeling that really helps resolve everything, but not everybody's ready for that feeling right away. They start back here and you walk them through all of the things in between that lead to this healing feeling in whatever capacity it helps them move forward. And I have television here because one of my favorite things to do when I'm writing, this is not popular, but that's okay. One of my favorite things to do is to watch television. I love to watch TV while I'm writing, and I'll especially watch a show that gives me the feelings that I want to be able to have as I'm writing so that those feelings accurately make it into my words and my descriptions. And again, I did actually write a book called Writing the High Vibe Hero's Journey. It's releasing, I think, on Halloween, actually. So I go into all of the plot points very individually and in depth in that book. If you want a free copy of it early, you can always reach out to me and I'd be happy to share it with you. All of these details happen right in that book that you can read at your own pace and that you can understand and do with as you want to, your way. But the one thing to remember all the time is you cannot mess this up. Victoria, or V.E. Schwab, is one of my favorite authors, and she is a New York Times bestselling author. She does amazing things. She's so authentic. It's fantastic. She is a person just like you and me. And she said this, if you write 10K a day, you're going to end up with a book. If you write 1K a day, you're going to end up with a book. If you write 500 words every Tuesday, you'll end up with a book. And if you write 100 words before bed or 50 whenever you can, you still end up with a book. You can't mess this up. This is your divine message. So it's okay to let your book unfold in its perfect timing. Because sometimes what I found is when I get writer's block, it's not actually a block. It's just that I haven't learned the thing yet that reveals what I'm teaching other people. So I need to learn it first, and I'm still in that process. And then the next slide is, are you a Gandalf or a Dumbledore? Because all of these things will make you a teacher. All of these things that you're sharing makes you the mentor of another hero. So what kind of style do you want to have? What is your version of authenticity? There's no wrong way to be a mentor. You know, when you speak to a group and you think, oh man, am I going to do all right? What if I don't sound like an actual speaker? Well, if you've been invited somewhere, if you're speaking like I am today, this is what a speaker sounds like. This is what a speaker does or looks like. And that's your interpretation of it. Whatever you're doing in that moment, that's what a person who's doing that thing looks and sounds and feels like, because you're doing it. So your type of mentorship, your type of guidance and teaching and healing, that's all you. That's all yours. And it's perfect. And always remember, you are not in this alone. You're not in this alone. We can actually channel and find the vibration of the collective. It's funny, during 2020, all of the things that have been going on, I would look at the news headlines, but then I go to the comments. I look at what the actual people are saying. And if you go in there, you can see how people are feeling, which gives you an indication of where the collective conscious is. Not what the media is telling us to believe or what might actually be happening in the world. We want to know what people are feeling. And you can do this, and you can help support the joy and the humor of this by sharing high vibration posts. What makes something go viral is that it gets shared. So you, in your ability and your empowerment to be able to share things, share high vibe things. Be an advocate for high vibe creators. Create that awareness. Don't use social media to impress people. Use it to impact people. And I want to make sure, I know I'm rounding out my time here, I want to make sure that we talk about where to find your people. Your people are like you. They're going through something that's probably just one step behind what you've been through. So where do you like to go? What do you like to surround yourself with? It blew my mind when I realized that my ideal reader hung out at Comic-Cons, because that's where I like to hang out. So my message is going to relate to someone who is going through what I've been through. That's my big tip for understanding your ideal reader, where they hang out, what age they are, what their interests are. Their age is probably the age that you were at when you needed a hero, when you needed this mentor. So what are their interests? Where were you at that moment? You definitely know these answers. So go ahead, and I want you to start researching yourself so that you can understand your ideal reader. And that begins with, what is your favorite color and why? And then branch out from there, other beliefs that are on different levels that take it further and deeper and into new things. And you will unleash this knowing of yourself, your inner self, who you are meant to be. And that's beautiful. So yes, there are obstacles and there are rewards, but reading fiction is important. It's vital. And it's a vital means of imagining a life that is other than our own. You can share with people all the things. I love this quote, and I'm going to make it a little bit shorter so that I don't run too short on time. But following complex storylines stretches our brains beyond the 140 characters of soundbite thinking, and staying within the world of a novel gives us the ability to be quiet and alone, 2 skills that are disappearing. Now think about that. Those are the skills that quarantine and isolation and social distancing are actually reteaching us in this year, in 2020. So we are connecting with the me in our isolation, but also with the I am. And when you do that, when you can connect yourself, who you are, with your source, you will automatically be preparing yourself to take care of the other people as well. The collective high vibe manifesting, which can happen through children's books. It can happen just anywhere, in any medium. So where do we learn to believe the unbelievable? Where do we learn about magic in the real world? Where do we find the safest space to explore these beliefs and not be judged or judge ourselves against the norms of the modern day? Where do we find that we can explore our imagination uninhibited? It's in the stories. It's in our entertainment. And if you're looking for a place to start with that, I do offer some free novels or novellas on my website, so you can get those and have a blast reading them. And just to round it out, here are some fiction books that changed my life. And I want to know, can you name a fiction book that changed your life? So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen now. I want to thank you guys for bearing with me on my technical stuff here. And here I am again. So I hope that you had a great time. I hope that you do have an understanding of some fiction that changed your life. And I'm so grateful to Zane and Naza for having me.
Thank you so much, KristaLyn. That was an enlightening talk. And I personally have been wanting to write for my whole life. And I know a lot of the people watching right now can relate. And we just didn't know where to start. So thank you for giving us not only an important message about high vibe entertainment, but also practical steps we can take to get started today. Just so excited to have you here. And thank you again for being with us.
Thank you all. Have a blessed day.
Bye.